Uzo had waited a decade for the joy of motherhood. After 10 long years of infertility and public ridicule, she was finally blessed with a son, Topaz. To her, Topaz wasn't just a child. He was the answer to her prayers and a symbol of vindication against her harshest critics. Topaz was a miracle that silenced the gossips and gave Uzo a profound sense of fulfillment. From the moment they arrived home from the hospital, Uzo became fiercely protective of her son. She made it clear to her household staff that Topaz was to be treated with the utmost care. Any perceived harm or neglect toward him was met with immediate dismissal. Uzo's devotion knew no bounds. To her, Topaz was perfection incarnate, and no one could make her feel otherwise. As Topaz grew, so did his attachment to Uzo. By the age of 3, he refused to interact with other children, instead following his mother everywhere she went. If Uzo spent even a moment talking with her husband, Roland, Topaz would throw tantrums, demanding her immediate attention. Roland, who was often absent due to work, noticed his son's over-dependence and tried to intervene. Uzo, you need to let him grow some independence, he suggested, but Uzo dismissed his concerns, claiming that Topaz's behavior was a sign of his deep affection for her. Over time, Uzo's overprotectiveness worsened. She continued to shelter Topaz from any discomfort and indulged him in ways that hindered his development. For instance, one day after a bath, Uzo walked into Topaz's room without considering her lack of clothing. Topaz, ever curious, pointed at her body and asked, "Mommy, what is this?" Rather than correcting him, Uzo laughed it off, believing it was innocent. Years passed, and Uzo's attachment to Topaz deepened. They spent nearly every waking moment together. They even bathed and slept together when Roland was away. It was during a visit from Mama Roland that Uzo's behavior was questioned. Mama Roland expressed concern about Uzo bathing with Topaz, but Uzo dismissed her warnings, believing that Topaz was too young to understand the implications of their closeness. "He's just a child," Uzo would say. By the time Topaz entered adolescence, his behavior became more troubling. He was increasingly possessive of Uzo, going so far as to challenge male teachers at school and monitor her every move at home. One afternoon, a neighbor named Mr. Daniel casually complimented Uzo, and Topaz reacted violently, shoving Mr. Daniel against the wall. Roland intervened but grew more concerned about Topaz's growing aggression and possessiveness. Topaz's behavior escalated further when he began calling Uzo "my queen" and bringing her flowers. Roland saw the unhealthy dynamic at play and took action, placing stricter rules for Topaz. He forbade him from following Uzo everywhere and encouraged him to spend time with friends. However, Uzo continued to interfere, protecting Topaz from any form of discipline. Roland felt helpless and frustrated as his warnings fell on deaf ears. One day, Uzo discovered a disturbing notebook hidden in Topaz's room. Inside were obsessive declarations of love for her, with chilling lines such as, "One day, I'll unlife my father so I can be with my queen forever." Uzo's heart sank as she realized the depth of her son's unhealthy attachment. She couldn't bring herself to confront a reality of the situation. She clung to the belief that Topaz's affection was innocent, even as the truth became more undeniable. The situation took a dramatic turn one evening when Uzo was preparing dinner. Topaz, unusually quiet, confessed to her, "Mama, I love you. You're the only woman I have ever loved." Uzo froze in horror as she realized the extent of Topaz's feelings for her. In a desperate attempt to break free, she called Roland, but when Topaz saw this, he became violent, lashing out at his father and demanding that Uzo choose him over Roland. Roland's intervention subdued Topaz, but the damage was done. Uzo realized the full extent of her mistake. Her blind love and indulgence had fostered something dark and uncontrollable in Topaz. Roland, unable to contain his frustration any longer, blamed Uzo for enabling Topaz's dangerous obsession. The guilt overwhelmed Uzo, but she couldn't bring herself to admit the full extent of her role in Topaz's twisted attachment. In a desperate attempt to find a solution, Uzo turned to her mother for help. Mama Roland suggested that they take Topaz to a pastor for deliverance. Roland, however, disagreed, insisting that Topaz should undergo therapy instead. Eventually, Mama Roland's insistence prevailed, and they took Topaz to Pastor Joshua, who immediately declared that Topaz was cursed by his spiritual mother. He demanded a payment of 250,000 naira for deliverance. Uzo, desperate for a solution, transferred the money, and Pastor Joshua began his ritual calling on spirits to deliver Topaz. But Topaz resisted, his anger boiling over. The scene became chaotic, and just as Pashia's ritual was reaching its peak, Topaz's rage exploded, leaving everyone in shock at what was happening. Uzo had created a monster through her unchecked devotion. Her love, meant to protect and nurture, had instead fueled an unhealthy obsession that was now threatening to destroy everything. The true cost of her blind affection was becoming all too clear, and the consequences of her actions were unfolding in ways she had never anticipated. If you are just joining my channel for the first time and have not subscribed, please help to subscribe. Like and share this channel, as this act of love would encourage us to write and create more engaging stories for your view. We appreciate that and love you for doing that.